we redesigned our team instead of having it be, more siloed to focus on talent experiences. So bring all the talent elements together,
Nice.
including our people services org, building from an end-to-end perspective, the approach versus process by process. So we're really trying to shift that to think how all of it connects so that you reduce redundancy, people working on multiple things.
Bridget, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Nice to see you again. Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and your journey to where we are today, and then a little bit about your organization for people that may not be aware.
Sure. I'll start with the org because it probably goes a little faster. So for those of you who don't know, UiPath is the business automation software leader. Our mission, I think it's nice to always start with what do we aspire to do? Our mission is about building AI-powered automation platforms that understand, automate, and operate end-to-end processes. So you think about it as not needing to have all the solutions, but the platform sits on top and really helps lift from automation across all of your tech, which is pretty impressive, I think.
Nice.
I think the one thing too, just to put that into more plain talk, is about we want to optimize work. We want to enable employee engagement, empowerment, and we want to take people above and beyond the mundane tasks that they have to do at work to be more inspired, more engaged, less burnout. I think that at the end of the day is pretty important, especially in the market we've got right now.
Amazing. Yeah, we definitely need that now more than ever. So we can do all the help, use all the help we can get.
In terms of how did I get here? So, I had to work on this for a while. Once people said, "Yeah, how did you get there?" And you had to really reflect about it as well. And one thing I would say, just as a theme for career, I always reflect, probably every week at least. What do I need to do better? How do I do this? But think about what do I need to change and how do I grow? So reflect, change, and grow is one of the things I think that stays with me in terms of always evolving. But as Chief People Officer, I've been here a little over a year. Pretty excited to have the opportunity to work with a team, a growing post-IPO company. My whole theme, if you look back at my career, is all about high growth, lots of change, and how do you take companies to really excel and scale from a people perspective. And prior to coming here, I came from Google Cloud. I'll go backwards from the top as opposed to the bottom. So I'll go backwards. I led HR for Google Cloud to really lift them in the enterprise space. Huge build, great experience. Prior to that, I was at SAP for about 17 years, which
Wow.
if you think about it, when I went in, there would be no way I would have thought to stay there that long, but had 9 jobs, different jobs around over that time, lived in Germany for about 4 years, took my babies there, literally a 5-month-old and a 3.5-year-old, but
Wow.
did not speak the language, but was probably one of the big pivotal moments in my career. And prior to that, I worked at a B2B startup, and they were one of my clients when I was at Mercer HR Consulting. That's where I started right out of grad school, focusing on all areas of total rewards, M&A, performance management, and working with companies, all sizes, all boards, right out of grad school, which gave me, it was the best training ground, I'll have to say, about how do you really understand being in front of customers, learning, how do companies drive as well.
One of the things I did take in that you've worked in this space through different lenses. You've worked through early on through an academic lens. Then you've also seen it through a consulting lens at your time. Then you've seen it through as a vendor lens at SAP. You have very unique perspectives from the outside in, inside out. Do you think that's something that's really helped you in your career, having worked inside and outside the function?
Absolutely. I think one of the things even being a consultant at Mercer, I wanted to say, like, how I want to know if the designs we build or recommend actually work.
Yeah.
So I have to go in and test myself. Are these actual legit and valid, and do these things work? It was not enough to be a consultant, right? Which was a huge lift in experience. But then even being inside a company, consulting at Mercer was during the .com boom. So it was high tech, really fast, and that's what I got attracted to high tech. I started taking clients in all different industries, but loved the pace, the change, the innovation around the incentive plan designs. For me, that was pretty big. And then even some of those, to your point, those different opportunities, I stepped out of HR at SAP to be the COO at SuccessFactors and drive strategy, because we had an external facing focus as an HR team, because we were moving to the cloud pretty quickly, and all of our salespeople were pretty great at pulling in people to be out in front of customers. So we help customers and prospects understand their HR strategy and how to digitally transform, and how that actually just gave a huge lift to take on changing the demographic of the workforce. You move away from succession plans to talent pools. There's no gaps in leadership. I mean, it's really a way to really accelerate how you deliver. So for me, the technology piece, to your point with the academic piece and the other angles, probably how I have cultivated the different areas, and probably makes sense why UiPath, one of my responsibilities is to work on lifting the HR space internally from an automation and AI perspective, and then also out in front of customers to help them as well.
I want to dive into some of the content, because I think one of the things that I was really excited about is to learn more about your recent automation generation report. So it'd be great if you could say, firstly, what is that for everyone listening, and then we can jump into some of the details and insights.
One of the ways we look at how do we actually drive, more automation but less mundane work, and we look at a couple of things on our automation generations global surveys. Important for us, we go in and look at about 6,400 workers that we polled around the world to understand what the current generation is facing as a result of whatever's happening in the market post-COVID, shrinking teams and resources, but also the different pressures they're seeing economically, right? Everywhere, I think as you turn. But for us, it's really to understand, how do we prepare for those next topics, and how do you get in front of it? And automation has been seen as a solution to enhance job satisfaction. And I think people think automation, oh, does that mean? It's really about thinking about it differently. It's about, already we've got about 58% of respondents say that technology has allowed them to address the burnout and increase their overall productivity and fulfillment. And that's a big difference, because right now, I think most companies are challenged on how to get people motivated and engaged. I think the other piece that was a key finding was around our millennials and Gen Z workers are more likely to use business automation solutions and believe that those technology tools are what's going to help drive their jobs for the better. So giving them that empowerment and having them be trained on how to automate, which is our overall community developer approach, is freeing them up from the work they're doing. And who better than them, right? They're the ones doing the work each day, versus my opinion, versus the person doing it on the ground. We find that these surveys help us identify, how do we provide those use cases for organizations? How do we make sure we get in front of it and understand what the audience and the users are going to be like for the future? For us, I think around that is, how do we think about how it attracts talent? Would you want to work with a company that allows you to automate the things that you don't particularly care for, and allows you to do the things that you really love to do, or the new things you can't get to because of it, and it allows you to actually constantly improve the work you're doing? So I think this is where not only this automation generation, but I think honestly, every generation, I think, can adapt to it too. I don't think it's just one or two generations.
No, I feel like it's more natural to the newer generations coming through, but everyone can benefit. For like one of the things that Shane and I did when we first started our business is automate everything. I remember we measured it; it freed up an entire day. Super important, and I think one of the challenges I mentioned to you, we had our wellbeing event yesterday, where we had CHROs, about 1,200 CHROs talking about their wellbeing, and one of the things that we was talking about when it comes to burnout is the systems and processes that companies have now were designed for a different, for 3 years ago when we're all in an office, right? And they haven't evolved. Their teams have gone remote. They've gone to a hybrid model, but their systems and processes are still the same, and that's causing a lot of burnout. One of the things that we took out of it is, before you start adding things as well, though, is look at like, what should we stop doing? Like, loads of companies are quick to throw in loads of new technology. I think I've got like 7 channels right now. At one point we had like a Zoom chat, a Slack chat, a WhatsApp chat, the Facebook workplace by Facebook chat. And they were all laughing about it, but it was ironic because they all know that those things exist. And it's like, oh yeah, but that team uses this, and we can't take it away because the other team uses that. And it just causes this mess of chaos that exists.
And Chris, think about, let's say 15 years ago, CHROs didn't have to even worry about that stuff. Their presence in social media, what they're showing, how they're attracting. I mean, I'm glad it's here, but it's a totally different way to think about how do you actually approach the work, but also what that your image persona does to help bring in talent, culture, et cetera.
Yeah. How are you seeing AI powered automation enhance things like productivity? Because that's productivity is a big thing everyone's focusing on right now.
I would tell you internally at UiPath from we call it our people organization, our human resources, and call it other places. But what we're doing is how do you actually provide more productivity? So we look at time and effort it takes, but also we're also looking at the outcome of it. What we're looking at is we have taken even data and saying, let's look at all the issues in the data. And if there's issues, we can actually find it so that you don't have human beings or people working through bad data in the system. So we have that set up and generated, and that's increasing people's time, but also reducing major issues in our data and how that feeds into all of our decision making. Another place on productivity, I would say, is that we've actually, let's take a recruiting process end to end, whether it's sourcing for candidates all the way through the first 90 days, the onboarding. You think about what a manager needs to do for all that. Think about the recruiting team, think about the HR business partner, think about the hiring leaders, right? All of that, we can even show how you just boil that right down. Automation works throughout the whole part. You could have assisted automation, where you have a human that comes in and out based on what they want to see, what they need. And we have the ability to onboard people, we call it our Rocketeer. I had brand new employees, week one. Here's a chart, a tool, a template around how do you sit down with your brand new employee? How do they like to be led? Week one comes in the next month. They have all their training, they're onboarding all of it through the Rocketeer. And then you're engaging with your people and you get the prompts. It's really nice work behind the scenes. It links to all of our learning and development and the culture. And then people are excited and engaged. And you're engaging from a human perspective, but all of it's powered by our automation. So I think that productivity, how quickly you ramp up employees, how quickly do they feel like they belong, makes or breaks their overall success in the first year for certain. So those are just some of the productivity. We have a lot more, but we had a hackathon this week in our people team, and we're giving awards for people with the best automations. And we have about a third of our organization trained on automation that we do ourselves. And then we are driving these hackathons to make sure we're continuing to evolve around our own automation and how we drive more productivity for the team. Nice. And the thing about HR is we can improve our team, but I think that benefit goes not only just for the team, but you end up lifting the entire organization. Think about the enablement that then lifts the employees, the leaders. They're empowered, they're engaged, and then how does that trickle to your customers? That's the bigger piece that I think people have to think about, not just thinking about a little bot, all the way to what a platform does to enable and lift an entire organization.
Mm-hmm. It's also scalable, right? You can't do this, you can't scale that without technology. Or we used to in the past, but it's a super heavy lift for the HR team. Super heavy lift, but also not only was it a heavy lift, but it wasn't personalized either. So it was a heavy lift, and it wasn't even personalized to Chris. So for one, you can scale it for obviously the nudges, everything you just mentioned, stuff like that. But also you can create a more tailored employee experience that means more to Chris and my journey, and meet me where I am at when I need it, like we do with our customers, right? We're just not doing that with our employees, and I think that's what excites me. And as you said, it frees you and the team up, have to have more time, and everyone to have more meaningful conversations. And focus on the people side of it.
And think about it, Chris, where we need to go. Think about all the data we have on people, all of it. How could we triangulate and pull those things together about their motivation, their behavior, time and role, potential, succession, learning, development? Think about how we can pull all that together and actually work with the employee, work with the leader, and see it all from a very different lens. That's where I want to go. And we're going to try to build out what that looks like. But that's, I think, where the power comes in. And we think more end to end. And to your point, what does that mean for the individual with all the information we have? We're not utilizing it enough yet.
Yeah. I can imagine like all of that being in its own sort of people P&L.
Yeah.
And linking that side by side with the finance.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that. So when you're having, I think we're pretty much close to having that conversation, right? But We'll maybe have some acronym for P&L, what P&L means. We'll rename what P&L means. Have the people P&L with all that data and insight, matching it up with the business strategy and the
I think
data.
you and I should have a workshop on this one. We'll just
Yeah.
we'll start sketching it out. You just need people to take the first full move right on it as well.
What about from a generation perspective? I think we was kind of seeing, when Gen Z workers have favorable views on next generation technologies such as AI, but other generations they're kind of a bit more disconnected. But I feel like the new generation, they almost demand this. It's like it's no longer a nice to have.
Mm-hmm.
They expect it.
I had dinner last night with some friends, and they were saying that their son had an internship, and the manager would give them work for the whole day, and they'd have it done in 15 minutes
Because
because they're
yeah,
they're using
ChatGPT.
they were using automation, they were using just even Excel, writing macros and doing the work, and then kept asking for more work. So this is the reality.
Yeah.
So I get it, maybe just an internship, but turn it around and say, how do you learn from the intern? Have the intern say, here's all the things we've got. What can you do with this, and how do you drive it? It's a funny story, and I just thought about this, Chris, but I went to school in London for a semester abroad, and I was had an internship out in Lee at one of the psychology, the well-being centers. And one of the things I was supposed to do is put all the files and operationalize them into the computer system, right? So take the intern, give them your problems, and see how they come back with it. I remember that. It was a while back, but that's how I learned how to love tea, and having the tea time was great. Every good 20, 30 minutes. Yeah, that's how I think we should think about it. Bring the intern in, have them tell us how we should be doing it differently, not the other way around.
It's interesting because I've told you before on the podcast, I've got in trouble in my younger days for things like that. So in my first sales role, the KPI, it was outbound sales, selling to HR executives. That's my first ever job. It's not an easy job as a 17-year-old, I'll tell you right now. And there was 150 calls a day, 3 hours on the phone, 50 outbound emails, right, etc. And after about 2 months of doing this, I was like, there's got to be a better way. So what I did, without telling my manager, is I bought a marketing suite and basically filtered in all of my leads, uploaded my Excel spreadsheet into the marketing platform, wrote my marketing copy, and I didn't even have to call anyone because I was getting deals by doing marketing. So people were like, why has Chris he's never on the phone, but he's doing quadruple the amount of deals. It's just, innovation at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But two things I'll take away from that, though, I think it's really a lesson learned is, one is they could have taken those resources, upskilled them, and had them do more on the increase your revenue, the top line, boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then think about just how much more they could have done. But the second piece, like you said, the measurements were wrong, right? So you found a different way to do it. The measurements were wrong, and how stuck people are on the same way. This is how we do things here. And that's the thing, I think, is if we do the reverse, is let's give people the issue, the problem, the solution, but you come up with how you do it.
Yes.
Right. Don't give them the solution. That's how we're going to actually take the next step forward. And even if it was 10 years ago, I think people are still in that same mindset.
What are some of the other findings in the report that really stood out for you?
A couple key highlights I think that would be interesting is that we've been able to help companies with their search time for talent by 95%. That's a huge productivity measure. And think about, again, the people power that you need to do that versus how they could actually be mapping the market, thinking about building relationships and finding the next new talent that you need out there. And then the other thing on what we're calling the automation generation, they're proving the point that already 31% of the people in that 6,400 survey, they're already using automation. And they're already saying that, these workers, 87% of them are saying their automation solutions feel like that they have the resources they need. They're not asking for more headcount. Can you imagine the headcount game could go away, and they have what they need and they're supported to do their job. So I also spoke recently to a friend who's really interested in this space. And she said, but have you thought about even writing job descriptions for automation, and think about where does the automation work and where do our people work, and very much thinking about it differently. So I think that automation generation should push all of us to think about it from a different perspective.
What does this mean for your own team? You see all these findings from the report. How are you then actioning some of that within your own HR team?
So one of the things for our people strategy is around role modeling HR automation for the company and for externally for our customers. So I always say we need a DEI lens on one, and our other lens is automation first. And so how do we drive that? And we're even going to double down this year on everything we do drive via automation. We have a COE in the organization working with them on how do we make sure we get the support around it. We need to automate all of this and really start to free up the work we need to do to help continue to grow this company. The opportunities we have are huge, and we can't miss it because we aren't fast enough to automate. So that's what we're focusing on. A couple of things is, as I mentioned, our community developers, training our own team to be able to run automations on their own and working through that. I want to be trained as well because I think I'll be better at explaining it if I understand the back end, how it actually operates at a better
so
way.
That's something you're training your team on then. So your team now, that's, wow, okay, interesting. So that's a skill we never thought we'd need as a HR practitioner.
I think we need it. I definitely think we need it for certain, because we've been doing these things a long time, and who better, again, to say, how do we move away from this space to actually do the areas that we're trained to do, as opposed to the operational side of the house. That's the big piece of it. And we, like I said, we had the two hackathons recently. We do that across the employee base. I think that's another way for us to really, again, learn from our people, as opposed to think we know the answers around how to take those next steps and the different use cases.
What are some of the things that people come up with?
The compensation perspective. So pull all the data together so you have one view of compensation for all elements, and allow you to actually have that for a leader perspective, but also for the team, as opposed to pulling all these different reports. Some new ideas around, I want to give them all away, right? So new ideas around how are we going to think about really changing our talent acquisition approach and leveraging the information we have across. So we redesigned our team. Instead of having it be, more siloed, to focus on talent experiences. So bring all the talent elements together, including our people services org. Building from an end-to-end perspective, the approach versus process by process. So we're really trying to shift that to think how all of it connects so that you reduce redundancy, people working on multiple things. We have clear clarity on what people are doing, but also too, that talent experience should be felt by the candidate, the employee, the leader, from an end-to-end perspective, not from how we would design an HR organization based on the function. That's how I thought, bringing it all together, having a leader that runs it, that's been in an HRBP roles, been in all the talent spaces, then you're all of a sudden, it all comes together, as opposed to feeling like these things are falling out of the sky as a leader, and you're supposed to do all this stuff and you don't know why, and you're not sure how it all fits together. So that's how we've reshaped the organization about 5 months ago to do that.
I love that you've done that, by the way. I'm seeing a lot of companies move to that model, because as you said, then you can create a really consistent experience across that, whereas typically you have those different functions that sit separately. Yes, they talk to each other, but there's disconnect there, and also it takes a lot more time to influence, and you can't be as agile when they're sitting separately. And you need to be able to move at speed and change and iterate. So I love the fact that you made that decision. Whenever I speak to heads of people experience, which is, another new role that we didn't have many years ago, the ones that I see that are really succeeding are where they have all of those functions sitting underneath the umbrella like you have. The ones that are really struggling is that they've got this head of people experience role, employee experience role, and they're having to manage 2 or 3 different functions and kind of bring everyone together, and it's becoming a bit of a nightmare. They're limited in their influence.
Right. You can't have it be separate and they don't own anything. They actually are then working through it. It just doesn't work. And so having the ownership, even things like internal movement in the company, that's part of the entire experience. And so that's why we even call it, instead of learning, we're calling it leadership experiences, because it has to be more than just learning. Right. We got to evolve out of that. And for us, I always look at ways to accelerate and be really prioritized about what we work on. We can't do it all if we want to try to grow as an organization to capture this market. And we need to utilize people and give them what they need when they need it, not all the things we could possibly give them from an HR perspective. And I think that prioritization is really key for us to accelerate growth for the company.
Mm-hmm. That being said, now we're speaking about AI a lot. How does that influence where you decide to invest your budget and resources?
First thing is we have our things we need to deliver on, our benefits and things like that for
Sure.
the static pieces. But for us, will be our majority will be on our investment will be on automation,
and then that's going to
and
inform.
Then it goes
Yeah.
all of it, and then look at and even before we even increase anything on our HCMs, I'm going to go automation first. It's much better to actually apply the platform than wait for an HCM for their automation to come, and it only serves that one solution. The platform will serve all, right? So if you want to link it to your Salesforce or ServiceNow, all of that can be linked, any technology you have, versus it only services one piece. That's the thing about scale. You've got to think about it as, oh, you put it here, then how will it run through the rest? And so for me, that's, instead of spending a lot of money and waiting for these roadmaps to come out, we're going to leverage the things that not only we need, but like I said, we can scale with customers.
There's a big frustration I hear, right? Not to bash on Workday or Oracle or SAP SuccessFactors, but many companies are frustrated and waiting, right? They all had their recent announcements over the last couple of weeks, and many leaders I've spoken to were hoping for more in terms of automation and the capability and how it's used to generate. It was very lackluster from what I've seen so far. It's just my personal opinion, actually, and the opinions of many people that I'm speaking to as well. But to your point, you're like, we're not waiting. We're not waiting for them. We're going to go and create ourselves and make it happen. And that's what you kind of have no choice at the moment anyway.
And we're appreciative of what the foundation has, but from and I understand being in those organizations, the lift it takes, right, for the entire suite or whatever it looks like, right? And for companies to change, we need to allow HR to accelerate to go faster and get the investments they deserve, that we deserve, that we know we can happen. And I think it's time to prioritize that as a company, because it's not just about the people function, it's the lift for the rest of the organization. But I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to keep going on the automation
I love it.
side.
There's so many people listening right now. They're on the same train as you. They love it. You can't wait around. And that also sends a very clear message to everyone, from the top of the organization to the bottom, and also your employees, that we're doing this because we care, and it's not only the right thing to do, it's good for business, good for people, and it's part of, I'm sure, interweaved into the core values, and as you said at the beginning, and the mission and the purpose of the organization itself. So you kind of got to walk the walk,
right?
If you're an organization like yourself. Listen, before I let you go, I want to kind of jump into our quick fire round. I know I'm kind of going to surprise you earlier with these questions.
Okay.
But so the challenge is, you've only got 30 seconds per question.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What are your hobbies and passions outside of the office?
You
can't say automation, by the way. You're not allowed to say automation.
Okay. Outside of work, I do love to work, so that's one thing. But scratch that. Exercises a lot, travel, and being near the ocean.
If you could click your fingers and change one thing about HR, what would you change?
To push ahead, to really force the change, force the investment, and kind of break out of the old ways.
Mm-hmm. We've been saying that for a while, but I feel like we're actually getting, the pandemic pushed us to, but now it's like, can we sustain it? I think I would say, the momentum that we've built. How do you think your family and friends would describe what you do for a living?
I thought at first you were going to say, how do they describe me? That'd be a different conversation. It's funny. The one time my daughter was young, and she said something about, you're the head of HR. And she says, Mommy, do you go and put your head on top of everybody else? And I thought, that is a really weird thing to say, right? I think they think that they never ask for my help with homework. So I'm not sure what they think I do, but they know that I actually represent people. And that's what they probably would say.
Love it. What legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I think for family, but also the profession, I think, are we lifting HR and challenging us to really drive in different ways? And for my family, I just, I've got a 19-year-old, and 15-year-old, and you just want to have the happy, engaged, and really good people and that we're gonna, in your life. And I think that's at one point that's part of your community service. I think even when your own family and your own relationships.
What would you say is the biggest investment that you made in yourself?
I really wanted to test. We talk about transformation and change as HR professionals a lot. A lot of it sometimes they're buzzwords. I went on a full transformation on how I eat, how I live, and did that for about like 3 months, and went through the whole change journey and wrote about it and used that methodology on how do you drive and live through transformational change. And so I said, I gotta do it myself, and then really be convinced I can help companies, other people drive change. So, and I've stuck to it in terms of just how I live. So
nice.
I would say that was a big challenge.
Good for you. What was the turning point?
Oh, I was flying around the world, globally, working a lot, exercising, but you could tell I wasn't as healthy, or I didn't have the energy. I was, had caffeine, all those types of things. And I knew I had to have like a reset, figure out how to make it all work. And I wasn't getting any younger. So I thought better to start and
nice.
pave the way for the future. So it worked.
Last question. What advice would you give to the HR leaders of tomorrow? The ones that are going to be sitting in your seat one day?
Yeah, I think start now on your being technology savvy, digital transformation. What does that look like? Embrace it now. Understand how to own and manage and lead culture. Measure it. It's not a buzzword. You really need to know how to really drive that, but also be a transformational leader and know how to bring up transformational leadership in an organization. I think that is key as well. And pick the CEOs you work with wisely. I think that makes or break your probably your success and your fulfillment as well.
Yeah, no, I love that one. Well, listen, thanks so much. Where can people connect with you? If they want to reach out, say hi?
Mostly on LinkedIn. I think that's the best place to go for sure.
Thanks for coming on. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Super excited for you and the journey that you're on, and looking forward to staying connected and connecting again soon as well. But I wish you all the best until next week.
Thank you. I think your story is very inspirational. What you've done for the HR profession is pretty astronomical, and I think you should be really proud of what you're doing every day and what you're going to accomplish as well. So if you ever need some partners in crime on these topics, let me know. That's great.
Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you again soon. Thanks so much.
You too. Thank you.